3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
It's Monday. It's Monday. It really is. 7 o'clock. And that can mean only one thing. It's time for Reading the Signs, where me, Comedy John Ryan, and my comedian pals from all over the world are going to be talking about comedy, well-being, why we do it, how we cope. And that's where we need your help. We need you to send us your top tips for well-being. Be part of the show. Drop a comment in the box on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on the mensradiostation.com website. It's going to be a great show, much better than last week. What we're trying to do is think exceptional, which, funnily enough, is the motto of WJ, our show sponsors. WJ are the UK's leading road marking and highway maintenance company. They're working with us, we're working with you. Let's get to it. Oh, that was pretty slick by my standards, wasn't it? Welcome along. I've got to just hide you for a minute, Kev, to Reading the Signs with me, John Ryan. It's 7 o'clock Monday that you're listening to this. I don't know what time it is or what day it is even where I'm here. But, got to move that toilet roll on the back of the door, looking a bit awkward. Welcome along to another show. Tonight, I've got a fantastic guest who I'll tell you about in a moment or two. Tell me about your day, though, guys. Do let us know. Put your comments in the box. Unfortunately, we can't read them straight away, but we do go back and revisit them when we can. So if you're listening to us on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, why are you doing this? You should be out climbing trees, getting some fresh air. But wherever you're listening to us, I hope you're safe and well. And do please leave us some comments. Let us know how you're getting on. We may well have Tasha in the booth tonight answering your comments and looking at your statements. Pat Rolling has already got quite excited at the thought of having tonight's guest on the show with us. Let us know, like I say, how your day's been, how your week's been, how's Christmas going for you. It's a tough time of year for a lot of people, but that's not to say that you can't get through it, and we will get through it together. One of the things that we're going to do tonight is talk about comedy and the world and what's going on and how we're all coping with it. And it's absolutely fantastic for me to have tonight's guest. When you start doing comedy, I've mentioned this so many times, it really is quite a cutthroat business. And it's very adversarial. Every now and again, you meet someone who's decent and who, for some reason, helps you out. And this guy is probably, I reckon, the most helpful comic I've ever known. I would never have done the military gigs without him, or the jonglers gigs, or the warm-ups. He was just really, really, really helpful, and I've always appreciated it. So I'm absolutely delighted that he's agreed to join us tonight. I hope that you enjoy listening to him as much as I've enjoyed working with him over the years. Pat Rollick is straight on it, talking about how Kevin was on the bill at his first ever jonglers gig, and it was a huge step up for Pat, and Kev was very supportive. So already people are acknowledging what a great asset he's been and what a great man he is. I first saw him when I used to go and watch comedy at Jonglers and up the creek. He was man with a beard then, and I just thought he was some random bloke who got out of the audience and made people laugh. And to be honest, that's probably what he is. Just a bloke. There's no airs and graces about him. He's probably met more famous people than anyone you will ever know, but you wouldn't know because he treats them the way he treats everybody. So it's an absolute honour for me to introduce tonight's guest. Please give a little welcome to Mr. Kevin Mcarthy. There you go, mate. Welcome along.
Hello, John. Thank you very much. I just have a little cough because I just had a biscuit before I came on, and it's rattling me. So that was a lovely introduction. Thank you very much. That's
right, mate. Like I say, I know that I never. Everywhere I'd go, I started doing the cruises because of you, and the CSC Entertainment Troops was down to you. Jonglers was down to you. You've been there, mate. It's like, this benevolent. It's all your fault. You're like this benevolent old uncle who's never once tried to abuse me. You're one of the safe, good old days uncles. That's what you're offering.
So give it time.
What have you been up to today, mate?
Well, look at this. I'm driving my lorry again.
I'll put you in the front. I'm in the back. That's how it should be.
Yeah, well, that's where it should be, mate. I haven't driven one for a long time now, but that's where it started. So, yeah, I feel good about this, driving my lorry again.
Driving it back. So tell us, what's a typical day for Kevin Mcarthy?
What was today? Today, I got up. I went for a long walk today. Oh, yeah, it was a long walk. And then I came back and we had Rita's sister-in-law round for lunch, and we chatted about all sorts of things, and she lives on her own now, bless her, so she had a lot to say about lots of things that have happened to her in the lockdown, and it felt like she needed to say them. And we sat there and listened. And
so you spent time with other people.
yeah.
That's always good to hear, mate.
Well,
No, it occurred to me the other day. I know nothing of your. I know that you've got a supportive family or a good family, but what was you like when you were a kid? Where do you fit in sibling wise?
I had 2 brothers, 1 sister, mum and dad. Lost me dad at the age of 15. Brought up by my mum. Lost my sister 6-7 years ago from breast cancer, and lost my elder brother during lockdown from bladder cancer.
Oh, sorry to hear that, mate.
And thankfully I'm still going. But yeah, I'm there's just me and my little brother Nick left now.
Oh, so when you were a kid, were you funny? Were you like the lively one in the family, or were you the quiet one? Or
No, I've always. when I was a kid, I was a bit on the podgy side. And with
Right.
a lot of podgy people, your defence mechanism is to be amusing. But then I thought I was naturally amusing, and it was just me.
Yeah.
And then, quite weirdly, not more than 10 years ago, I bumped into a guy who I sort of half recognised. He was very old, this fella. And suddenly his name was Charlie. And I said, Charlie, did you ever have a breakdown company, like, picking up cars and stuff? And he said, yeah, Charlie Senior, his name was. And he just looked at me and he said, yeah, you're Mac's son, aren't you? Which is what my dad was known as. I said, yeah, how did you guess that? He said, same sense of humour. So my sense of humour was actually inherited without me knowing it. But because I lost my dad early, I never really got the chance to find out,
Yeah. Were you the funny one of the siblings though, or you got a funnier brother? Or
yeah, we were all quite amusing. His sister was very funny. My elder brother he did a bit of playing the guitar and singing and was funny in between. I mean, little brother likes to think he's funny, but no, he's not. Bless.
Would you say that growing up you were a happy person?
Yeah. Yeah, I was.
Again, that's quite strange because, like you kind of, I mentioned it in the intro and that I've mentioned it a few times over the week. Comedians, generally speaking, are so dysfunctional. One of the things I always loved about you was that you just seemed like a pretty normal bloke. You have your tea. My first ever weekend trip away was to Exeter with you, and maybe you're just gonna have a bag of chips. I thought, okay, so he's very showbiz.
Yeah. I rumbled into this purely by mistake, and up until then, I'd had a pretty, not a strange life, but like I'd left school to be. My mum wanted me to be a bank manager. I think I lasted a fortnight with Barclays and went on to Burma Castrol Oil Company, where I lasted another fortnight and decided offices weren't for me. So I ended up working for Hertz Truck Rental.
All right.
And worked with them for a while. And then when I got bored with that, so they realised I was getting bored and they put me on the job of going abroad and picking up trucks that people had basically nicked. So I used to fly to some strange places and just take photographs of trucks they had nicked, and all that was left was the chassis. And they'd taken all the wheels and the cab and everything else had gone. And then from then I went on to truck driving. From then I wandered around the world, and I went on holiday to New York for a week and came back 5.5 years later.
What happened there then? Did you lose your passport?
Bundled along, Well, I'd been driving. I started a little firm with twin wheel transit vans in the East End. Big trucks used to come into London with beer and wines and spirits, put them in the bonded warehouses at London Bridge or over in Pennington Street in the East End, and then our little firm would take them out of the warehouses and deliver them to the restaurants around London. And I
Right.
started getting a bit bored with it. And one morning I was going through the Blackwall Tunnel and somebody on a motorbike overtook me at 8 zillion miles an hour and went straight into the wall in front of me and killed himself stone dead. Bless his
Jeez.
heart. So I sat there watching the aftermath of this for an awful long time and decided it was time to stop doing what I was doing. And a mate of mine had said, look, I'm going over to New York. He worked in New York. Would I like to go over just for a holiday? So I said, yeah, I'll come over for a week. And I just kept going. I like New York. So I thought, I wonder what other parts of America are like. So I've got to drive.
If you went for a week, were you not there illegally? Is this a confession, Kev?
No, yes, I was there. Well, yeah, quite a bit illegally, actually. I mean, I wasn't illegally to start with, but I certainly finished up illegally. And I went. It was quite hard to get into America then, and you had to prove that you had money, and I hadn't got any. So I had $1,000 worth of American Express travelers checks, which wasn't enough to enter the States. So just before I left, I lost them. And they replaced them, and I still had the originals. And of course, the people that I showed them to in America didn't know that the first lot were useless. So they said, "Oh yeah, you got $2,000. You can come in."
Wow!
I got in, burnt the dodgy ones, and carried on in America. And got little jobs out there by using my mum's Aylesbury phone number as my national insurance number over there.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was good fun, though.
Do you not worry, though, that now with all the technology we've got available that you'll get a knock on the door?
No. What do I care now?
They've just extradited Julian Assange. You could be the next one, mate.
Yeah, I could be, but I'd have to. I mean, I haven't got the blonde hair and I can't speak Swedish, so I really don't know what I'd do, to be honest.
So how did you cope then out there? Where did you live? What did you work at?
I lived with, first of all, my mate who I went out there with, his girlfriend had a flat in New York on West 83rd Street and Columbus, and I stayed in there for a while. And then I had a couple of jobs driving a lorry out there, and then I decided he was going down to Houston. So he said, "Do you want to come with me?" So I thought, yeah, I haven't really got to go home yet. So got a driveway car down to Houston and then travelled right across through Phoenix into LA. Hated LA. Absolutely hated it. And thought, right, I've been there about 3 days, I'm going home. And on the way to the airport to go home, I saw this massive great billboard that said Western Airlines have got a special deal, $40 to Hawaii, one way.
Wow.
So I gave that a go, and once I got to Hawaii, it was as far going back the other way as it was that way. So I just kept going. I kept in touch with my mum. I think in 5.5 years, I sent her 3 blueies, the old mail letters, and wandered down, got to Australia, loved Australia, got thrown out of there in the end because I
How long was you in Australia for?
I think 3 years, just over 3 years, near 3.5. But then I was on a working holiday visa, and you could stay in a state for 6 months, and then you had to move to another state to renew your visa to prove you were working around Australia to see it. That was the idea of the visa. And I ran out of state, so I was in Perth, and I went and begged and borrowed. I said, "Look, I want to stay here," and he said, "No," he said, "I'm sorry, you've run out of time." He said, "All we need here, if you wanted to apply," he said, "is welders and nurses, and you'd have to go out of Australia to apply."
Okay.
I tried my luck, and I went back the next morning in a nurse's uniform with a welding helmet on. They still kept me out. So
Weren't having you.
No, but then I would never have met my wife. So
Where did you meet her?
I lived at one end of the street, and she lived at the other end of the street.
Well, so you travelled the world and ended up the love of your life was 12 doors away.
Well, not quite 12, 14, I think it was. And she used to walk past the house, and I used to think, I would. And then I met her, and we just.
And you did.
You know,
did, mate.
yeah.
Regularly.
And we've now been married for quite a long time. I couldn't tell you how long. But yeah.
What you see, this just sums you up, mate, because within 15 minutes of talking about your life, you have mentioned your missus, who is a wonderful lady, who I've always, when I think of you, think of her next year. And it's interesting for me that one of the things that makes you well grounded and well rounded is the fact that you seem to have, a stable life to go back to. That plus your life experience. That's where you get this kind of bloke next door ability from, I think.
Yeah, it's got me into trouble though. The life experience bit has a few times. I remember doing, as with you, CSE work where you're in some fairly iffy parts of the world, and the problem with me travelling around the world when I did, it was a bit iffy. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that program, The Serpent.
Yeah.
Charles, what's his name? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I know.
The guy in Thailand. Well, that was going on while I was wandering around. I was there at exactly the same time, to be honest, and and so it made me very wary. And when I went on things like CSE or on cruise ships where you're with other people, and you're travelling with them, I was terrible at travelling with other people. I got it in my head that I had to look after myself, or with Reet, I have to look after Reet. But yeah, it got me into trouble a few times, making decisions that nobody else wanted to make. So there we go.
But it's funny because to me, I think the first time I saw you probably was about 97, and you don't look a day older, mate. You are still the same.
Oh no, I am. Believe me.
I'm sure you feel it, but
a thing coming up on my head there, which I think is another head. I'm not sure.
So then tell us all about how the man with a beard came about. What's the story?
Well, I've got this mate, Mickey Rutherford, who's a very well-known motoring journalist, and we've always been mates. And he said to me one day, rang me up and he said, I've found this wonderful alternative comedy club. You'd love it. So I said, all right, Mickey, let's go then. So we went to what was then the Tunnel Club, which was by the Blackwall Tunnel in Greenwich.
Yeah.
An old pub called the Mitre that was more well known as a jazz club at the time. It was a really good jazz club. And on a Sunday night, this bloke, Malcolm Hardy, would take it over as a comedy club. And I went and watched it. I thought, yeah, that was funny. And they used to have open mic spots, like somebody would get up and do a minute, 2 minutes, usually quite a lot shorter in the Tunnel Club because they were a very harsh audience. And Malcolm got on stage and said, look, I've only got 2 open spots tonight. Who wants to give it a go? And my mate Mickey Rutherford banged me like this on the shoulder, and Malcolm noticed it. He said, well, come on in. And I got up and I did 2 minutes and I sat down again, and unbeknown to me, I'd really done quite well because normally first time up as an open spot, 10 seconds was pushing it up. Then I went back. I loved the place, and I told my sister about it, and she came back with me the next time I went about 6 weeks later. And this time, Malcolm, the guy on the stage, recognised me and said, I need another open spot. What about you, the man with the beard? Okay. So I said, yeah, all right. I got up, I did another 2 minutes, and it went okay. And then, without me knowing, about 3 weeks later, the Sun newspaper ran a sort of audition page for Opportunity Knocks, and my sister filled it in and sent it off, and I got on. I was offered, I did 2 auditions first. It didn't go that well, to be honest. In fact, the second one, I thought that was the end of my career altogether. The first one, I lasted 19 seconds. I had to go up to the Riverside Studios in Hammersmith. And I lasted 19 seconds, and they said, right, thank you. Well, I'd parked my 40-foot truck outside at the time, and I had the seriously.
All right.
So I went home, and then they sent me a recall. And I got back and I sort of let go at them. I couldn't see anyone in the audience. It was, totally black from the stage. And they said, right, off you go. I said, no, hang on, before I start. I said, last time I lasted 19 seconds and you told me to off. So I said, why? Why have you called me back? Is this just more humiliation? And I heard this laugh that I recognised in the background, which turned out to be Bob Monkhouse. And the lights came up, and him and the producer was sitting there, a fella called Stuart Morris, who used to be Les, what's his name on the piano? Les Dawson.
Les Dawson, yeah.
And Monkhouse said, you're not in this business, are you, Kevin? I said, no, I've got a truck waiting outside. I said, I've got a delivery to make, and you lot are messing me about. And he laughed again, and he said, well, what we do is we see if you've got stage presence the first time, and if we have, we come back to see if you're funny or you can play the musical instrument you've got or whatever. And so I did my audition and then got invited on the show. So I'd done 2 open spots at the Tunnel, then a 19-second audition and a 25-second audition for Opportunity Knocks, and then I was on the telly.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
I hadn't had a lot of practice. And I had to do 4 minutes on the telly. They invited me up to Acton's or the rehearsal studios, and they sat me down, and I had Monkhouse as a writer. I had John Junkin, who used to be a sort of cameo actor plus a writer. And 2 other writers. I can't remember their names now. And Stuart Morris said, right, these guys are going to write you a script and then you'll do it on Thursday night. This was on the Monday. And I said, well, hang on. This is me doing this, I said, you told me to get a 4-minute act ready, which I have. And Monkhouse just turned around and said, yeah, let's see his act first and we'll see how it goes. And they accepted all of it, except I did an impression of a dying chicken. It was just a chicken going.
Yep.
And I said, yeah, you can't strangle chickens on prime time.
Hilarious.
That was out.
That is hilarious, mate.
We replaced that with a joke, and on I went. And then I won the show I was on.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah.
So you won, just for people listening, Opportunity Knocks was massive. You think Britain's Got Talent?
It's like that.
It was bigger than that, though, because there were only 3 channels then. So it would have had like 17, 18 million viewers.
Oh, yeah, there was a lot of people. That's what got me. On the Monday, I was delivering stuff in London and just walking into a restaurant and walking out again, 4 people recognised me. And I thought, whoa, that telly's powerful, that's and then, I carried on doing the work on the trucks and became a comedian at the same time. But by mistake. The whole thing's been one great big blunder. I never wanted to be a comic.
It just happened.
Yeah, and I've had a wonderful time.
Would you not ever think about writing your story, your autobiography?
All by accident. So there we are.
You wouldn't write your own. You wouldn't write a book then. You wouldn't write your own biography.
Yeah, I've been forced into it in lockdown to stop me going crackers. And I really thought I would go crackers after the first 3 days. I thought, right, that's it, My main escape was walking.
Yep.
I'd go out in the morning and walk for an hour and a half. And then I came back and I thought, why not do a diary? I had no outlet for it because I'm not on social media or anything. I'm the worst. How this is working, I don't know.
Mate, I am shocked at how good you were and how easy it was to get you to just sit down and do it.
All I had to do was press a button, which made it quite easy. If there's anything else involved, I just give up on it. I'm just no good with computers or technology or anything. So I use Rita's, that's my wife, Rita's Facebook page. And I did a diary every day. And, some of it covered my life and some of it was that day. And it was just, I went for the walk in the morning, thought up what I was going to write about. Got back, wrote it out longhand, usually about 2 sheets of A4, And then I'd have my breakfast, and then I'd hammer it out on the computer. And when I say hammer it, I must get through a keyboard every 3 or 4 minutes. I just use that finger and I hit it like it's a 4-pound sledgehammer.
Wow.
And that is me typing like that slow. But that turned out to be a perfect speed in that what I'd written longhand, I could then edit as I went along. And yeah, it turned out, I mean, I couldn't believe when I said I finished it after 90 days, because that was about the lockdown.
Yeah.
And I said the day before I was going to finish it, and his computer filled up with people who said, "Oh, don't finish, we have had lunch to this," and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And one, it made me realise how powerful this social media lark was.
Yeah.
But two, it got me into writing, and everybody on it was saying, "Right, when are you going to write the book about your life?" Because it's been quite. I don't realise how interesting it's been, because it's just been.
Yeah, I tell you why you don't realise, because you're like a calm island in a sea of crazy. So even like I watched you comparing once, I think it was Jongler's bow, and it was just a riot, and you literally went out on stage and you just stood there, you didn't even open your mouth, and I remember thinking, what's he doing? Surely you got to tell him what, shut up and sit down, but you didn't. You just stood there quietly, and slowly, one by one, everyone stopped. And then that was it. You had the room, and you didn't even need to open your mouth. It's that presence.
Yeah, I've used that before. If a room's rowdy, walk out there, say hello, so that they know someone's on stage, and then just button it and wait for them to think, "What, is he going to do something or what?" And then that gets their attention.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but before I started doing comedy, I worked in community care, but half my time I did trade union stuff. And one of the best tricks I learned very early on was that when you were talking to like managers, or you're talking to anyone, and you want to alpha male them, as it were, just don't talk. Silence is such a powerful weapon, because other people who get it will be silent as well. But people who don't, they fear it, they'll just start wittering away. And it's those life skills, like I said, that you go to Australia, you go to America. Do you think would we be seeing a book, The Man with a Beard? Who is the Man with a Beard? Something like that next year.
Yeah, well, I'd love to, but I wouldn't do it for any reason. But I want my grandkids to know what my life has been.
Yeah, no, that'd be good.
We've all got the best grandkids in the world, but I'm lucky in that I have. My granddaughter Freya is just a lovely little girl, and my grandson Dylan is just a wonderful, sharp little boy. And we just had every year we have a long weekend away. We book somewhere, like this year we booked a lodge in the New Forest, and they spent the time making a film. Like, this is a 7 and a 10-year-old with their mum's phone, made a film about what we were doing, and it had credits at the end, and they called it Silly Studios, and made up a logo for the beginning of it. And at one, it made me realise just how out of touch I am with technology, that could work. But two, it made me realise that, if I told them about what I'd done, made it out,
And you know what? And it'll give them, and it's like a living diary. Mate, I'm gonna get a petition up to get you to do it. I'm gonna need to do it. So you alluded to lockdown and about how you found it difficult. You got that routine going.
Yeah.
How's your health been through that? Because I know you had problems with your hip or your knee.
Yeah. Oh no, I've had a new knee. The other one's jiggered, but I'm not even approaching them now, because there's much more important things going on than a knee hurting. Like, as I say, because I lost my brother, I lost because of COVID, not through COVID, but they just locked down on his cancer.
Yeah.
And by the time they opened up again, it had spread all over his body, and that was his lot. So, I do sort of think people with cancer come first. And at the moment, the NHS is struggling. I mean, it's struggling in all sorts of ways. So I wouldn't allude to, like this. Basically, politically, it was in the not in the foreground before this all started. People work in it and still take all the crap that they get, you know, and it just amazes me. I think they're wonderful, the people in the NHS.
What about then, like, because we mentioned that you've entertained the troops. How did you get into that? How did that come about? How did you manage to? Because you were a bit older when you started doing stand up, weren't you? You weren't like a teenager.
Yeah, I was 35, and the first CSEs I did were, I mean, you know, the people who do CSE now, as I do, well, they weren't around when they first did it. It was a guy called Richard someone. I can't remember his full name, but he was like an ex-RAF pilot, old chap, you know, all this sort of thing. And he was then a presenter for BFBS and all the forces radio and stuff. And he saw me and asked me to go up and do. I did gigs in Saxford, up in the Shetlands, and then I did one in Benbecula on the Outer Hebrides, and that's what CSE were doing then. And then CSE sort of became a charity that only did work in war zones. The one that really took me by surprise was Cyprus. I couldn't believe that because of the green line there, that's still a war zone, you know. But no, it was. So that's how I got into that, and then I'm not sure how I got back into them again. There was probably 6 or 7 years between the first time I did CSE and the second time. And they took me to the Falklands, and a lady who you know as well as I do was in charge, and I went on and compared, and we were in the Gull and Penguin, you know, the bar down there.
Yep, okay.
Which can be raucous, to say the least. You know, you fight your way in and you fight your way out. And before I came off, I'd had to wing it all the way through. And she, bless her, she walked up to me. She said, "I didn't realise how good you were at this," which was really nice. You know,
that's very, you know, recognition's complimentary. Yeah. But that's you all over, mate. Because I'm sure. I can't remember what it was, but you had sandwiches. I mean, you may even have had a flask with you. It's just going to work. You know, I know that when you did the Jules Holland warm ups, when you couldn't do them and you kindly put me up for them, and I'd go, and I'd normally, if you replace someone as a warm up, you go, what does the other warm up do? If you like Miles Crawford, I covered for a couple of times, and they'd say, just go out there, tell a few jokes, flirt, get them clapping, be cheerful. James Alexander was a guy years ago I used to do warm-ups replacing him. He just used to go out and do jokes. But when it was you, I'd say, what does Kev do? And they went, well, he's just Kev. I'm like, what does that mean? What are you giving to go on? Well, he's just himself, really. Just, you know, go out and...
I love to have a natter with people.
Just get a chat to him.
You know, I just love to... And the joy was, I was sort of... When I first did Jules Holland, which is, well, I did it for 16 years. So the first couple of weeks I did it, I'd got it through Malcolm Hardy. And okay. Jules had asked him if I'd be interested in it because they'd been getting through a warm-up a week because nobody liked it. And it was, as you know, it's a tough old gig. It's in the round, so you've got people behind you, in front of you, and they're interested in the musicians more.
Basically, just to explain, the warm-up goes on before a show's made, and it just gets the crowd G'd up a bit. And normally there's an audience in front of you. They've come to see a comedy show, so you do comedy, you meet them halfway, and very often the warm-up then gets to be a guest on the show or gets a chance or gets to meet TV people. But with the Jules Holland one, it was literally you're standing in the middle of a square, people in four corners who've come to see the music, who aren't particularly interested in jokes or laughing. But I would literally go, who came on Central Line? Did you notice it was stuck at Hammersmith? You know, and they would go, yeah. And it was just like you say, have a chat. And after every one that I did, I'd always go, is that all right? And they went, well, you're coming back in, yeah? Then yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I know it was like that. I mean, the first ones I did were awful, and I just turned to Jules and I said, mate, do you mind if I talk to the bands beforehand? He said, okay, do what you like. So I then brought the bands into it, and that meant that I was now the sort of link between the bands and the show.
Yeah,
and and I ended up with. I really did end up with some very, very famous mates out of it. You know, people who are still keep in touch with now and again. You know, it's
Well, that's what interested me was that I can always remember one week I'm having a conversation with Paul McCartney, and how bizarre is my life that the day before I was at Tesco's bringing back a toaster, and then 24 hours later I'm having a chat with Paul McCartney. It's like wow, it's wow.
That's actually one of my favourite photos that I've got. It's of me chatting to Paul McCartney with Kylie Minogue draped over my shoulder.
Brilliant. Just brilliant.
Thankfully, it didn't show the half a mongrel I had on at the time.
And then how did the cruise ships come about then? Because again, yourself, Jeff Stevenson's another guy who I kind of looked at and thought, I like what these guys do. Rudy Liquid was a bit like it, where I'd go, I like the work that you guys get, right? Yeah. I like the work you guys get. And then I remember Jeff saying to me, oh yeah, you do well on the cruise ships. I'm like, and I was like, really? Me? And then next thing you know, you put me forward and I'm on there. And I'm 17 years later, still on there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I've come off because I don't want to travel so much anymore.
That's fair enough.
As you know, we recently lost a mate on there.
And
I would hate for that to happen. You know, like I really would. And plus, I had 1 week, right, where I got on a plane to go to Barbados. They only wanted me on there for 3 days. So they flew me from Gatwick to Barbados. I got on the ship. I was on the ship for 2 days. We were sailing past Dominica. They took me off the ship onto on one of their little lifeboats, took me to the shore where a taxi took me through the rainforest for 2.5 hours, put me on a 3-seater plane, which then took me to Antigua, where I changed to another plane to Barbados, onto a Virgin flight that was delayed for 9 hours. So got into Gatwick in time for me to get the National Express bus round to Heathrow, where a flight was booked for me to go up to Manchester, where I had to get the Transpennine Express to Leeds.
Well,
and
yeah. Didn't you do? Wasn't it you that did the Barbados to Gatwick via South Africa? Was that not you?
No, I did.
Charlotte, America, something like that.
No, the most exciting one I did was much shorter than that. It was Gatwick to Mallorca, and it's a 1 hour 25-minute flight, and they forgot to book it.
Brilliant.
And I ended up taking 14.5 hours to get there. I went from Gatwick to Frankfurt. I went from Frankfurt to Munich. I went from Munich to Madrid. I went from Madrid to Barcelona, and I then went from Barcelona to Mallorca.
Brilliant.
Never been on so many planes in all my life. And I've been on some, like with the CSE stuff, you get to fly lots of planes and things. But no, that was a long one. But yeah.
What would you tell Kevin McCarthy, age 30? What would you say to him if you met him before he started the comedy and he was happy driving lorries around?
Hang on in there, son. It's going to get exciting.
Would you have regrets? Would you have wished that you hadn't done so much traveling, or?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm absolutely 100% happy with the life I've had. I'm unhappy with losing people along the way, but then that is life, isn't it? You know, some people go, but no, I'm 100% happy with the way it's gone.
See, it fascinates me because I forget how glamorous it is what we do, and I often end up in situations where I'm with my civilian friends, and I'll be somewhere, and someone will go, "Oh, I saw you at a comedy club," or "I saw you on a cruise ship," or "I was once at Alton Towers with the kids," and these 4 squaddies come over and went, "Hey, it's a bloke we've done the shots with." I'm like, "All right, fellas." So, but how would you have coped, do you think, had you achieved the level of success that your talent was capable of?
Badly.
Okay.
I was put off it at an early stage. Don't get me wrong, I would have liked to have tasted it. just to see, if it is that exciting and wonderful. But I did I supported Joe Brand on a tour of Ireland.
Okay.
And we flew out of Stansted on Ryanair when Ryanair, I think it was a paper plane they sent over. It was, yeah. Joe hated flying, so she was at the door with like 6 cigarettes in her mouth, like this, puffing away, bless her. She walked on the plane and just got clapped when she got on the plane because she was, it was when Joe breaking then. But then we got to Ireland and we did 2 nights in Cork, and we were in a really nice hotel that was an old monastery. And at the very same time, the Olympics was on, and Joe wanted, I think it was a friend of hers was either performing or her husband was or something, and she really wanted to watch it. And it involved us waiting up till 1 o'clock in the morning to watch it on the hotel telly. And we're sitting there watching it, and these 2 women came in, completely bladdered, and said, "Oh, we'd like your autograph." And Joe said, "Look, you can have it in a minute, but I've been waiting all week for this." And they then stood in front of the television and told her that they weren't going to move and she wasn't going to see her TV program until they got her autograph.
Wow.
And bless her, she held it together long enough for the guy who was looking after her at the time to pick him up by the scruff of the neck and get him out of the way. But it dawned on me that, sorry, I forgot the term.
Okay.
It dawned on me then that this ain't the greatest thing in the world, this fame. A lot of the time it was. And I was, at that time, travelling with the best person I've ever known handle fame. I mean, Joe was unbelievable at it. So, yeah. So I'm not sure.
But it's got to be really difficult because the pressures, like you say, the travelling, especially if you're away from your partner, then you're on your own. And we go from, I literally have to switch from, give me my choice of what I'll do tomorrow. I'll hang out with the missus and the kids. I'll be more than happy to do that. But instead, you've got to get on a plane, go be part of someone's holiday, make it memorable for them, or go out to a military base where these guys have been away, and then you've got to click into it.
6 or 7 years ago, I had a year where I spent 281 nights outside of my own bed.
Yeah.
Some of those were in cruise cabins. Some was on bunk beds in fighting off camel spiders and mice in Afghanistan, laying next to Kandahar airport. Some of it was in dodgy hotels. Some was in nice hotels. But no, I had enough. That's a lot of time outside your own bed and missing, talking to your wife on the phone.
Yeah.
I can't be doing that anymore.
And it's why you do it. Why do you put yourself through it? So before lockdown, I thought that Christmas, I'd kind of decided I was going to change what I'm doing. For years, I've always taken one weekend off a month. But I figured then I was going to do one weekend plus one other Saturday so that I could be at people's birthday parties, social events, and all the rest of it.
Oh, yeah.
But then obviously then lockdown came, and then, Tesco's and Santander went, you need to get some money in, son.
That's a sort of regret. I've missed all the 21st birthday parties and weddings, and now I've got time on my hand. It's just funerals, It's just so there we go. But that is part of it. I was talking about that today. It's the most unsocial job in the world.
Yeah.
You almost say goodbye to all your mates because whenever they're doing something, you can't. You're somewhere else.
Or you, and again, it's something I learned from you, was when you're out of town, you make sure that you keep in touch with mates you've got in those towns. Like I said, when we went to Exeter, I think you stayed with family or friends.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I'm going to do that. I'm going to.
Yeah, you do that as much as you can. But then, sometimes they're somewhere else when you're there. So
it's selfish. That's what they are. Selfish.
Yeah, I know. I've written them stern letters on such occasions to say.
Then how did you cope then like lockdown when there's no audiences and there's no one? What do you do? Do you just then become Kev the granddad or Kev the husband, Kev the dad, Kev the writer, Kev the walker?
No, I was sort of. It started off, as I said, the walk was the most important thing of the day. And it still is now. I had a long walk this morning, a couple of hours. the walk is time for reflect. It was funny. I used to leave the house and go to the right, and Rita would go to the left. And I'd say, "Why don't you walk with me?" It summed it up. She says, "Because I like time to talk about you." So she was chatting about me the other way, and I went that way. But the walk was important, and after the walk came the diary, and then I don't know why it was. On the walks, I started noticing that there was just pallets everywhere, builders' pallets,
Yeah.
And I thought, I tell you what, I could make a nice planter for the garden out of one of them. So I went out in the car, picked a couple of them up, and people were throwing them at me because they don't want them.
Yeah.
And I made a planter and I put it outside the house. And from that, I got orders for other planters from the neighbours. Oh, yeah, we'd like one of them. And then I ended up doing planters and garden furniture and all sorts. And yeah, it filled my day. Well, I mean, thankfully, we had such marvellous weather. I was standing out in the garden, knocking out planters and, all manner of things and just keeping my head going that way.
So, see, you're a natural leader, and now you've become a carpenter, and you're growing the beard. I'm telling you, it's how Jesus started, mate. You could be able to say
it. That's where it'll all end. Yeah.
What's the plans for the future? What are you going to do for the next 20 years?
Not sure. We had a place in Spain which we sold just before the lockdown. To a very good friend. I mean, basically, we decided, we loved it out there. But when you've got a place somewhere, that's where you go on holiday.
Yeah.
All the time because you're paying for it. You've got to get your money's worth. And we wanted to start, branching out again. Just before the lockdown, we went to the Far East and did a cruise around Vietnam and places that I saw when I walked home from Australia. It was really, so for me, it was like a trip down memory lane. And for Reet, it showed her all these places I've talked about for years, And it was really, it really was not just a good cruise, but because, this is a terrible thing to say, because China was on lockdown, the whole of the Far East was empty.
Yeah.
We had it to ourselves, there was no one spitting on my feet. It was wonderful. It was just, so yeah, we had a really good time out there, and I covered the tracks of the places that I even found the hotel that I stayed in 44 years ago, and I swear they haven't even washed the curtains since.
I better recognise you as well, mate. Here he comes. Here he comes.
Little Chinese hotel on Penang Island. That was. It was. So that was. I'm glad we did that. I mean, mind you, I was a bit stunned when we got back. We were at the time in the most COVID-riddled place of the world.
Yeah.
Right, it was terrible. And everywhere we went, we got tested, and there were people in haz suits. And then we got back to Gatwick, we landed, and they said, the pilot said, look, he said, we're going to be here a while because we've got to get in touch with NHS England. This is 1 o'clock in the morning, and see what we've got to do to let you in. I mean, this is only like a week and a half before lockdown. 30 seconds. Nobody checked us. Nobody looked at us. Nobody took any temperature.
Yeah.
So I won't get into the politics of it.
It is what it is, mate. I wanted to ask you though. So you've because you're a great example of resilience, right? Because you've found things to do: the walking, the diary, making plant pots, making memories. What do you think it is that keeps you mentally strong? That when so many people are struggling.
I'm not sure. Maybe it's just the way I'm built. Maybe it's just the fact that I've been like that all my life. Like when I went wandering around the world, I had to look after myself. If anybody ever goes travelling, the one thing I'd say to them is do it by yourself. Don't go with someone. Because that way you're forced to make friends. You're forced to talk to people. Otherwise you go bonkers,
See, that's really... That's very relevant to me. My baby boy, when he was 18, went off to university. When he finished 21, decided he wanted to go around the world for 18 months and came back so confident. So the shy little boy came back, a fully formed, very self-aware and sociable young man. And that, I think, that resilience will stand him in good stead.
Oh yeah,
as it has done me.
It's me. You know, I don't mind getting up in front of 1,000 people and just having a chat with them, because I had to be in places like, say, Bukittinggi in Sumatra. I knew no one in the world. A little Indonesian chap had come up to me, realised I was English because I was the only one there with a massive Jock McTavish ginger beard. And he'd try and speak to me, and I'd speak to him. And now I've got no qualms about speaking to anyone. I just love starting conversations, be it with one person or 1,000.
Yeah, but you take an interest in the people that you speak to. You seem genuinely interested in what they have to say. A lot of comics will shoulder surf, and they will always be looking for the next, more interesting bloke in the room. But I never saw you do that. Never saw you do that. Always made people feel welcome. You're always very supportive. What could you think of as a tip for people to take away from this whole hour that we spent talking?
Just talk to people. Man, and I mean that when you're walking down the street, like one of the things I use if I'm walking down the street and I see someone coming the other way, maybe doesn't look like they're having the best day in the world, especially if it's a cold day. I said, they could do with some radiators along here, couldn't they? And just break the ice. And people have a little chat, and it might only be 2 sentences each. But they've just communicated with someone, and you don't know if you are the only person they'll communicate with for a week.
Yeah.
They might have just come back from the post office, and the next time they talk to someone is when they go to the post office again next week. So just chat to people.
My dad used to chat to everyone, and I've told this before, but I always remember once walking along Kilburn High Road. I was with my dad, and there's another fella coming towards us, clearly an Irishman, with a boy about the same age as me. And my dad said, hello. And the fella says, how are you? Dad said, I'm fine. How are you? I said, I'm not too bad now. All right, so. All right. And then we just walked on. And I said to my dad, who was that? And my dad said, I don't know, but I know him the next time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it really sat with me. That really sat with me, really struck home. So I say hello to everyone. I say hello to everyone, which is, again, at the end of the day, we're on our own, and it's how do we get through life? Well, it's by making that first step, isn't it?
Yeah, just chat to people.
So apart from the book you're about to write, Kev, what have we got to look forward to? What's next?
Just plodding along. We bought a little caravan in lockdown. Brilliant. Because we used to have a motorhome that we toured all over Europe in, and we got rid of that because basically it had a problem with its emissions. Like, it was an old diesel engine, and every time we got anywhere near a city, anywhere in Europe, they charged us about 8 million quid just to drive through it. So we got rid of that. And at the beginning of lockdown, we thought the only safe way at the moment to have holiday is going to be like to sit in the middle of a field. Yeah. So we bought a caravan. And we've just had a wonderful time with it. We found really nice sites. We got a place down in that we go to a lot down near Dover, a little place called Kingsdown, between Dover and Deal. And it's just got a 180-degree view of the channel, and you see the ferries going one way and the shipping traffic going the other. And all sorts going on. And you just sit there and chill and take it all in, and Spitfires go over the top, charging people $5,000 a time to fly along the. It's nice, mate. It's amazing what things you can do that somebody else is paying a fortune to do, and you're having just as good a time as they are. You don't have to be spending millions, to do things. Just find the cheaper way to do it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Kev, mate, that's our hour up, mate. That's flown by. I could talk to you all day, man.
No, I enjoyed that. It's a good night.
I really appreciate you coming on tonight to talk to us, share your tips. I obviously always appreciate our friendship and the support you gave me, especially when I started out. So thank you for that, mate. And I look forward to that book coming out, mate.
Oh, yeah. I'll start on it in a minute.
Get on in there.
I've got my pencil sharpener. I'll get going.
Take care, mate. You stay safe, my friend.
Thanks, Sean.
Good, yeah. Take care, buddy. Wow. that was Mr. Kevin McCarthy. Just a really interesting, wonderful human being. And just so much positivity comes from him. Don't get me wrong, he can be grumpy, as we all can. But generally speaking, I've always found him friendly, happy, and he treats others how he wants to treat others. Not in the hope they'll be nice to him in return, but he'll put his stall out and go, this is what it is. I'll talk to you. I'll be friendly to you. I'm here for you if you want. And that was very interesting where he said his top tip, just talk to people. Talking to people when you walk down the street, when you come across people, say good morning. Good morning is one of the most powerful sentences in the English language. You say good morning to your partner and you know what sort of day you're going to have. If you say good morning, they say good morning back to you. It's all right. You say good morning, they ignore you. Think about what you might have done that's upset them. Walk down the street, say good morning to people, and people will say good morning back to you. If you want to have a bit of fun, say happy birthday as well to strangers. They'll look at you either confused or it will be their birthday. Freaks them out. It's great to see the lovely look on their face. As always, I thank WJ, our show sponsors, the UK's leading road marking specialists. I would ask people, do have a look at our social media accounts and give us likes and follows and all that stuff, you know, like kind of young nonsense. But really, nothing beats a good old chinwag. Make the effort. If you're struggling, don't forget you're not struggling on your own. There are places where you can go and you can get help. Time to Change and Mind are fantastic. People are having a really tough time at the moment, and it doesn't have to be that tough. So if you're struggling and you're able to reach out and ask for help, do so. But if you can't, then let's hope that those of us who are in a good place will recognize that you're in trouble, and we'll maybe reach out and just put a hand on your shoulder or under your elbow. It's difficult to know how to approach people sometimes when they're having a tough time. But like Kev McCarthy's just said, just say hello. Hello. How you doing? Now, if they don't answer you, you can choose to walk off, or you can ask, why are they not answering me? We're all giving away clues to how we're getting on in life all the time. How we're dressed. Are we unshaven? Are we clean? Do we smell all right? If we don't, rather than shunning us, maybe someone should go, what is going on in your world, mate? Is there anything I can do to help? Because there's a great old saying, isn't there? If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Have a little think about the top tips that we give out every week. Just picking some out at random. Sol, who talked brilliantly about his struggles with life and about how he thought about ending it, he said, don't bottle it up. Do not bottle it up. Battle it out. Life isn't always easy. Wilson, of course, complete opposite end of the spectrum, young, physically healthy, said, yeah, sort your physical health out. You're never going to be mentally in a good place if you are not physically well. Now, it doesn't mean you've got to be built like Arnold Schwarzenegger and go to the gym, but it does mean that you need to go and get yourself checked. If you go to the doctors, get yourself an appointment. A simple blood test will find any little problems that you may have. Now, I know people say, oh, you can't get a doctor's appointment at the moment. But if it was for your kid, you would get it. And men in particular are terrible at putting ourselves first and taking care of us. The most important statistic that you'll ever learn, that you will ever need to know. It's quite a simple one. If you're in trouble, 100% of the most important people in your life are in trouble. Now, don't think that it can't happen to you, because that's one of the biggest mistakes that anyone will ever make. Tonight we've had Kev McCarthy on, and I will leave this last comment up from Paul Wright, who has got so much respect for Kev. Kev, he's already saying we need the book, mate, and he'll sign the petition to get it. So already, look, there's 2 copies you've sold without even putting pen to paper, mate. How great are you? I hope that everyone is going to be well and that you will stay safe. This COVID thing, it's not going to go away for a while. Whether it's real or not, something is out there and it's hurting people. So do stay safe. Take care. Enjoy each moment if you can. We will be here next Monday, as we are every Monday at 7 o'clock. In the meantime, do tune into the mensradiostation.com and the womensradiostation.com. Be good. Well, that's the end of another episode of Reading the Signs with me, Comedy John Ryan. We're here every Monday night at 7 p.m. talking with comedians about mental wellness, mental well-being, and just trying to get the conversation going. What we're trying to do is show that it's good to talk, and we're also trying to show that everybody can go through the same experiences. A massive thank you to the WJ Group who sponsored the show, showing their commitment not just to mental well-being, but also to reaching as broad an audience as possible. It's great to be part of the mensradiostation.com family, so do check us out on the website, on social media. We'll be back next Monday. You take care. Stay safe, everybody.